Thank you. All right, so if you don't want your face on the recording, you can turn off your video. And you can shout out questions or put them in chat with some question marks. Sally and I will be monitoring chat all day. So welcome to Georgia. She is a board member here with the Colleagues of Calligraphy. She is a remarkable bookmaker, letterer, and artist in her own right, as well as author. And we are really, really excited to have her with us here today to give us a set of tools that some of us may not have in our toolbox. So, Georgia, thank you for teaching, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Anne and Sally. I appreciate your staffing and checking us today so we can do this. Hello to everyone else, and welcome to our Makers University and our first session of the day. I know for some people, 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning is kind of early to show up, so I really appreciate you being here. The title of my piece is Letters and Tangles and Words, Oh My, and I can't think of it without hearing Lions and Tigers and Bears, Oh My, because that little song goes in my head. But when I was taking my instructional methodology courses, I learned about the wonderful magic of three. So I'm going to tell you really succinctly what I'm going to do. Then we're going to do it, and then we'll summarize it, because there's something about the repetition of knowledge that just ingrains it in our brains. So I will be giving an overview on Zentangles, because that's one of the three things I'm combining. Then we'll practice a few, and then I'll do a little spiel on combining traditions using Zentangle inspiration in other pieces of my work. And in this presentation, all the Zentangles except one are mine that I have done. And I hope many of you had a chance to watch Heather Held last night. It was wonderful. But you will find echoes in this presentation of some of the things she said about her process. She talked about the difference between offhand and design, sometimes doing one, sometimes doing the other, sometimes combining them. And that will show up more than once in the Zentangle process. So here we go. Let's see if I can share my screen. You cannot share screen while the other participant is sharing. Anne or Sally?
Right. Back out of share screen and
no, I need to unshare.
Try again, because I had a share thing at the top of my screen as well for some reason. So just exit that screen and just start again. Yep. You good, Anne? Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see that?
Love it.
Good.
Yes.
I tried to come up with a fun title for this course, but the real core of it for me is combining visual traditions, because in my own work, I do many different things. And I find when I combine a tradition, a different tradition with a traditional one, it can enrich everything I do. And that's my hope for today, that I will give you some insight into how to enrich and enliven and have fun with your creative process. First of all, I have to state, I am not a certified Zentangle teacher. There are such things in the world. I am an enthusiast who took a brief workshop and bought a book. I will teach from my own personal experience. The reference I've used for definitions and to answer your questions is One Zentangle a Day by Becky Krahula. And this is the book, and this is the one Zentangle you'll see in my presentation that is not drawn by me. If you are interested, this book is a 6-week course in creative drawing for relaxation, inspiration, and fun. I have found over the years that anytime I do a repeated practice, a sketch a day, once I forced myself to do 3 haikus a day before getting out of bed, because I always have a journal next to my bed. These practices, I never know where they're going to be used or if they will even be used, but they enrich all my creative practice and my life. I always feel when I was doing the 3 haiku a day before getting out of bed, I always felt like I'd done something before I even got dressed. And that was a good feeling. And there were times in my life, I was married at 19 and had 3 kids by age 24, when I didn't have time to do much of anything. And what I did then was log on my calendar. If I hadn't done a creative something in 3 days, I would stop what I thought I had to do, whether it was clean or cook or whatever, and I would do something creative. And I found that during trying times, a very good way to move forward. So what is a Zentangle? A Zentangle is a miniature abstract work of art. It's created on a 3.5 square piece of art paper, which is called a tile. The process is meditative. It's an art form using pen and pencil. There are no mistakes and no need for erasers. Don't let that get you nervous. There really are not mistakes. You can blurb around anything. Zentangle is meant to be a surprise that unfolds before the creator's eyes, one stroke at a time. Creating a Zentangle teaches us to become comfortable letting instinct be our guide. When I did Becky Grahula's 6-week practice, I found myself move right into that right brain mode. And time, I didn't notice the time. I didn't notice my surroundings. I didn't notice anything. It was very lovely that way. And it is a way to focus and get to that wonderful creative place. Zentangle tools and materials are simple and easily transportable. If you were speaking a little bit beforehand, Anne was talking about how she has her little packet of things. These are easy to take with you. You can create Zentangles while on a plane, at a restaurant, and your comfy chair at home, almost any place, at a coffee shop. It's very transportable. The tools and materials are simple. You need heavy white or black paper, art paper. One good option is artistic watercolor paper. Sigma micron pens or an equivalent. I myself use a Faber-Castell Pitt artist pen. You need a white pen, a white gel roll pen, or its equivalent for working in black paper. And then 2H and 2B pencils. And of course, you always need a sharpener if you're using pencils. The parts of a Zentangle are the tile, which is the art paper, border, string, tangles, shading. You can see a little shading in this piece. The tradition asks for a stylized signature on the front and notes back matter on the back. Now, if you look at this Zentangle, you will see there's only 3 spaces that have tangles in it. And it's basically geometric forms. You have squares and you have circles, and then there's some dots. But in coloring one side of a square, you create triangles, and adding a little line in the white part of the triangle, you add more texture and interest. Basically, it's just kind of a structured doodling in lots of ways. There are 3, these are the main steps for creating a Zentangle. Choose your tile, black or white. So that's step 1. Step 2, make 4 dots and connect them to the border using your 2H pencil. In this photo, I used color so it was easier to see, but you can see the little green dots and you can see the way I connected the dots. Now you can connect the dots in a different way. You can put the dots close together. You can put them far apart. You can only fill half of the page. It's very open what you choose to do. Then you draw your string. So inside your border, you draw a line, and it can just use half of it, all of it, as much as you want. And then you add your tangles, and they can be, like I said, just geometric forms. They can be dots, they can be lines. And if you wish, you can add value by shading areas using the side of your 2B pencil, then smudging with your finger. Or if you have a smudger, those are really nice, then you don't get your fingers dirty. When you're shading, it's most effective if you choose a light source. Say, pretend your light source is on the top right-hand side, and just shade the parts away from the light. Okay, we're going to have a practice pause here. I'm going to set, I hope most of you brought materials. If you didn't, you can just use a black piece of paper and a pen and draw your own 3.5-inch square. But we'll go back to the last page and I'll keep that up so you can follow step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I'm going to set my timer for 10 minutes. And you can ask me questions while you're drawing, if you have any. You'll have to unmute yourself to ask the questions.
Georgia, this is Pam, and I'm wondering what the significance is with the 3.5 by 3.5-inch size of the tile.
Wow, I don't know. The first question, I don't know the answer. I do know there, which I'll mention later, there are there's a Zandala, which is a Zentangle on a circle that's 4.5 inches. And there are other Zentangle inspired works that are different sizes. I don't know if they worked hard to find a size that would make it happen in a certain amount of time because you're only filling up so much space, or it just happened like that story about cooking a turkey by cutting off one leg, and it turns out that great grandma didn't have a pan big enough for a full turkey, so she always cut off the leg, and that's the reason that tradition started in that family. I don't know what caused it, but I found it a very nice size to work with, and there you go.
Great.
It might be a good thing to Google.
Thank you.
Do you want us to copy your patterns there, Georgia?
You can do that if you feel most comfortable that way, or you can just take a risk and play. I always found when teaching that when my students played, they took more risks and did more creative work. And when they had assignment they had to complete, they became more rigid and didn't have as much fun and didn't do as good work. So I would suggest playing, but you can certainly copy. And within this tradition, they do teach specific tangles that somebody designs at some point that you get to use. So copying, even though this is supposed to be a totally free, intuitive process, there is copying involved in learning tangles.
Georgia, this is Joyce. I had a question regarding the string. Should we avoid crossing over our string to make, can we cross over it to make smaller areas, or should we just draw string that doesn't cross itself?
You may cross over. You can
Nope.
do anything you want with the string. You may even just fill half of the border with strings and not fill in like in the drawing I'm looking at step 3, there's kind of like 3 loops and the opposite is 2 loops. You could just leave the 2 loops blank and fill in the 3 loops with tangles if that is what your intuitive heart desires as you're working. That said, while you're learning, a Zentangle teacher might ask you at one point not to cross the line at all, to learn how that looks, and then to cross the line and learn how that looks. So you can do it either way. We're going to have another practice session later, so if you don't finish now, that's okay. You'll have more time.
And are we doing this with pen or pencil, or doesn't it matter?
The tangles you do with pen. The border and string you do with the 2H pencil, so it just kind of disappears and you don't have to use an eraser.
Love it.
Five minutes left. I love the energy-packed silence when people are working on their creative work. It just feels so good. 1 minute left, so come to a place that you feel comfortable stopping. And like I said, you will have a chance to continue in a bit. And stop. How did that feel? Anybody want to, was it interesting or new or?
I didn't want to stop.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. Becky Krahula teaches Zentangle as meditation. Here are her 11 steps. We just did choose the tile, draw the border, draw the string, and draw the tangles. But for Becca, she asks you to relax, breathe, admire the paper and tools, draw the border, draw the string, draw the tangles, shade the tangles. With the pen, initial the front, then sign, date, and comment on the back. Afterwards, reflect and appreciate. Admire up close and at arm's length. I don't know how many of you have taken yoga, but this is kind of that format. You relax, you breathe, you do the poses. Afterwards, you pause and you notice the changes in your body after you've done the poses, and then you enjoy it. So she really does teach it as a meditation, and it can be quite lovely. And I hope you found a little bit of that in what you were doing. So you did the steps 1, 2, 3, 4, tile, border, string, tangle. I suggest, as I found it very useful, getting into the habit of using the initialing on the front. You can see that funny little forward G, backward G connected with a serif and 3 dots. I came up with that as a sign for my work like this because I'm a third child. My husband's a third child. I have 3 children. So that's what the 3 dots stand for. And the 2 G's, 1 forward and 1 reversed, are my initials. So you can come up with whatever you want. You can just sign your initials. These are 2 Zentangle inspired bookmarks I created while preparing for this class. The fronts display the design I used my signature dot, and the back shows my notes. So I have the date, my signature, and the bird form. I had no idea I was going to make a bird on that first one. It just happened. And the second one seemed very noisy and busy, which is how my life felt at the time. And so the busyness projects my state of mind. That's just my comments on that one. And doing that with your work, I had a writing teacher who said I should always date and time anything I wrote. Sally, are you speaking? Anyway, to continue, I found it very helpful to do that process that way, and you may too. Looking back on stories I've written or things I've drawn and seeing the comments that go with it can be another source of inspiration. So if you take a class from a certified Zentangle teacher or a resource book like I did, you will learn several vocabularies. You will learn traditional tangles with names like static, tipple, crescent moon, knightsbridge, nekton, fescue. Let me go back one. I think the lines that look like branches with little buds on them, I think that's a fescue. I think it was one of the ones I learned. So fescue and they have all sorts of funny names for them. There's also other terminology you would it would be good to know. A CZT, Certified Zentangle Teacher, ZIA, Zentangle Inspired Art, and there's all sorts of that out there. My bookmarks are one, and artist trading cards. This kind of drawing is wonderful for artist trading cards. Granted, they are 3.5 by 2.5, but it works in that space. Tangulations. These are created when an original existing tangle, like static, tipple, crescent moon, knightsbridge, any of those things, are changed in some way, varied, altered. A Zendala, which we mentioned before because of the question, is a Zentangle on a 4.5-inch round art paper. And there are 6 what they call tangle enhancers: auras, dewdrops, perks, roundings, shading, and sparkles. All we'll be dealing with today is shading. But if you find yourself interested in Zentangle after this workshop, for all things Zentangle, just go to www.zentangle.com and you can find all sorts of resources and information. Okay. We're going to give you a chance, another 10 minutes here to work on your Zentangles. Finish the first one, start another. Remember, this time I'm not going to leave the cheat sheet up there. You just get to try to remember. You pick your tile, you put in your corner dots with your 2H pencil, you draw your border connecting those dots. Then you draw your string within the border. And then you fill the spaces with tangles. And I'll set the timer again. Enjoy, play, have fun. I like listening to classical music when I work. I find that if I do music that I know I want to sing along, and that distracts me. So I like instrumental music that the words won't interrupt my process. If any of you have questions while you're working, please unmute yourself and ask. 5-minute warning. One-minute warning, find a place to rest, pause. And stop. Now, one of the things I hope is that at the end of our time together, you will be willing to share what you've been working on and show each other. We'll go back to the gallery mode and share whatever you're comfortable sharing. And you can continue working as I talk. You don't have to always look at the screen. Okay, now you've had your overview. We have an understanding of Tangles. How do we blend this tradition with other artistic practice? As you can see that image on the right-hand side, there is a letter followed by a border, followed by Zentangle inspired art. And at the bottom is a word. So there you have, in foundational, there you have a letter and tangles and words. Oh my. But before we start talking about this project that I'm working on, I want to ask you, first I want you to look at these two examples and tell me what you see that's similar about these images compared to the Zentangle images you've seen today. One's in just an embellished capital and one's a page from the Book of Job. Think artistic elements. Unmute yourself and just shout out your answers.
Repetition.
That's a good one. Repetition is a good one.
And alternation of black and white, dark and light.
Right.
So
The switch between positive and negative space that flips, that makes design so interesting.
I see a circular pattern. So
Right.
that circle seems to be standing out for me.
Correct. Good. Good eyes.
In chat, someone said borders and a central image.
That's good too. Okay. You've got good eyes. You're looking the way I want you to be looking. So words I came up with was line, repetition, movement between negative and positive space, organic shapes, geometric shapes, shading, image, abstract shapes, connectors in the design through complementary elements. These are all design elements inherent in the practice of calligraphy. We look at space, we look at how the spaces go together, we look at line, we look at the space between the lines. That's why Zentangle and calligraphy traditions combine so sweetly. When thought and risk and play are chosen by the artists, your options are unlimited. As you know, the title of my presentation is Letters and Tangles and Words, oh my. I believe all artists can add zest, energy, and freshness to their work if they dabble in mediums and traditions outside of their regular practice. Now I'm going to talk about what different practices I often combine in my work using one particular project as an example. This project combines several different aspects of my creative process. Artist, writer, teacher, printer, bookmaker, designer. These are most of the words I use when naming myself as a creator. For this project, I have chosen three: bookmaker, writer, and artist. But I want you to think about, what do you call yourself? And write the words down in your notebooks. And you were talking earlier about having so many notebooks. You could write this down in your notebook. How many parts of your life could you combine to make something new? It can be as different as making popcorn, loving animals. It could be many, many things. It doesn't just have to be creative work. But could you take a class and learn something new? One of the book artists I worked with was for 30 years a sculptor, in the round sculptor. She was marvelous. And something about making books really intrigued her, and she went with it. And think about what traditions you've already combined in your, that maybe you didn't think about them as different traditions, but I just want your mind moving. And you might wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with whatever you think of, to get you thinking about what you can add to enrich your work. During the peak of the pandemic, I took an online bookmaking course from a teacher in Scotland, Rachel Hazel, hoping to one day take a retreat she offers on Isle of Iona. And just as an aside, I got to do it last August. I took a driftwood binding retreat on the Isle of Iona, and it was marvelous. This is a blank book I made while taking her online course. I decided I wanted to fill it with word and image and to adapt a poetic form for my purpose. So the writer part of me stepped up here, and the poetic form I chose was acrostic. An acrostic poem is the style of poetry in which certain letters from the poem spell out a name, a word, or even an entire phrase that may or may not be related to the content of the poem. It is typically the first letter of each line that spells out the word or phrase, and the poem is typically arranged to spell out the word vertically, but these are not mandatory rules. Okay, I will read what I wrote here for this class. Greetings, my friend. Enter here without fear. Open your eyes, renew your hearts. God grant peace and safety to those who rest inside this home always. This is an example of a typical acrostic based on my first name and used as a blessing. Using this form, my name need not have anything to do with the meaning of the words, which they don't. But in this case, this reads like I am giving the blessing, so there could be a connection. For my book, I decided to make an acrostic alphabet as text, 2 long connected sentences. Another being could decide everything forever. Good humans, instead, just kindly list more nice options, purposeful questions, reframe sight to undermine vicious, wily, xenophobic yearnings. Zap. Yes, this could be considered an alphabetical political rant, but it was really fun to try to come up with 1 or 2 sentences and use every letter in the alphabet, in our alphabet. When I studied Russian, there were 36 letters in the alphabet, and one of them was not a sounding letter, but you moved it around and it changed the sound of everything else. I much prefer our 26 letters. It's easier. Now that I have chosen the book form and the text, I have to put my artist hat on and design the pages to fit and complement the book form. So here's some working sketches. I have to decide paper, what calligraphic hand to use, what space is used by the letters, what space is used by the words, and where the Zentangle designs will be placed. This is all very similar to designing a page of calligraphy, or a book, or a broadside, many, many things. I made those decisions and designed a template to make the work go faster. I began practicing the pages. I decided to work on each letter as an independently drawn attachment. So what I found while doing this, particularly, let's see, look at the D, the decide, is that I really liked the contrast between the thick letters and the thin lines of the Zentangle. So I liked having that one large letter inside the Zentangle inspired design. But I found that working with my pen and the thickness in the ink, that I'd have to draw the letters and then wait 3 days to work on it, or the letter would smudge. The ink just wouldn't dry. And so there are a lot of those kind of challenges to working with this, the steps you take to do it, and what worked and what smudged and what didn't work. And I decided to not have like the top one, the A, another. I tried doing several pages with a similar shape around the letter, and I didn't like that at all. So I ended up with an organic squiggly shape around the letters, and I like that better. And you can see on the B on being, I I didn't wait long enough to start working, and I didn't use something to block the word being, and I smudged that word. So there's a lot of, as with every project you work on, there's a lot of the process you have to figure out as you go along, but it's all part of the fun. So I also check as I go along. I am going to finish the inserts independently, and then we'll glue them into the book when they're done and not smudged and not anything else. But I still check as I go along to see how the pages will look as a whole and as double page spreads, to see if I should use any of the elements in the Zentangle on both pages or make them totally different. So again, we have a letter, we have a word, and we have Zentangle inspired art. And if I hadn't taken Zentangle, or if I hadn't taken calligraphy, or I haven't taken book arts, I would not be able to put all these things together. So that's how far I've progressed on my alphabet book. I'm still working on individual pages, taking time off to put it away so I can come back and look freshly to see if I like my choices. While working on this, I decided I didn't like the paper that I used, so I'm going to look for a different paper to make my inserts with. To the right is a series of tangles using a white pen on black background. They're similar, they're Zentangle inspired. This is a project I started with a friend who has since died. I'm not sure now what I will do with these drawings, but I think I'm going to make them into a book and pair them with haiku that I've written. So I know I will use them. I just don't know how, which is another thing. I don't believe anything you ever do creatively is wasted. It fills your time, it fills your heart, it fills your muscle memory for working. It's just, even if you never make it into something else, it is an enrichment. So I hope I have offered some basic understanding of Zentangle with some insights on how it should combine and add energy and freshness to your creative. Any questions here? Okay, now I have to figure out how to get out of sharing my screen when I don't have a cursor to do it. So we can go back to gallery view.
Last time, you went all the way to the end and then it popped back, so maybe.
There we go. Okay.
Yay.
Fine.
Okay,
Now
perfect.
gallery view. I can't find my little thing. There we go. Thank you. So I hope some of you would be willing to share now your drawings that we did together.
There we go.
Okay.
Joyce.
Could we change there? Wonderful. Look at that. Have you done Zentangle before?
Ah, let me come this way.
Ah,
Barely.
very good. Lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, and it really starts to pop when you start to shade in there also,
It does.
which we haven't done yet. So
Right.
yeah, thanks.
Anyone else? Oh, here we go. Two more.
There's Bev.
Wonderful.
Ooh.
What fun.
Oh, you've got a
I love
Charlemagne
the
Macintosh rose in there.
contrast between the dark and light is very strong. Yeah.
And then Sonia. Pretty.
Wow. You guys are great. Here we go.
Pam.
Mm.
Ooh,
Nice.
I like that. You're making a asymmetrical border. That's cool. Again, the contrast between dark and light there is great. Anyone else?
Let's see if I can.
Get rid
Ah,
of your blurry background.
But I don't want anybody to see my pigsty.
Oh, we've seen it.
we see that. We see
There you
it.
go, right there.
That's fine. Oh, a round one. You did a mandala one. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Well, you guys are great students.
I
Any
do
questions at all before we let you go and rest before the next presentation?
I did want to show this.
Okay.
I got you there. Let me spotlight you, Pam.
I don't know if they're still
Oh.
selling these at Michael's, but I have, it's 3-inch paper. So
Oh, so you can work on them.
you can just keep,
In a book.
you know,
So all you need is a pen, a pencil, and
yeah, I just put that in my purse.
yeah.
And then on some of the pages, I glued in black paper.
Mhm.
So you can
Great.
do stuff on. I mean, it's probably not the same. I mean, it's just, they're all put together in one book.
And
I
the
think
more
that's a-
advanced you get, you can add colors, you can add the tangle enhancers, the other 6 that I don't have written down right here, but yeah, there's lots of ways to make it more complex, more interesting. Use color. And keep learning. Well, thank you very much. Keep
Oh,
going.
I was gonna say, I've really enjoyed doing a lot of work on black paper. And the one thing that I've learned that I just have to live with is I'm really into using all the metallic jelly rolls and all that. That metallic does not photograph well, especially if it's on black paper, because it's only, the camera will only pick up the sparkle. It's looking for light, and that's where it comes from. So that would be my one word of
Caution.
experience, that if you don't necessarily expect that you're going to get good photographs out of anything you do on black with sparkles.
But as you saw, the just black and white works well.
Yeah, for sure. Or the matte ones.
Mhm.
The sparkles really, they hurt. They hurt the camera.
Anyone else? Well, this has been lots of fun. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
It's been really
Yeah.
lovely, Georgia.
It was wonderful.
Thanks
Yeah,
for your all your
thank you,
delivery
Georgia.
in this.
Thank you. All right, we have 15 minutes before Nina
You can stop the recording, Ann.
Yep, I can do that.